Hi everybody, welcome to the Key of C. My name is Paul and I am the founder of Lyceum Guitar Academy, and I'm very excited to be bringing this new series to you. I'm excited for myself, as it's always a journey starting a new series, and I really hope that you will get a lot out of this. So jumping straight into it, we're going to be looking at 6 chords today. They are going to have their roots on the E string, and essentially we're going to be covering these 6 chords through the whole series. So they're going to be very important to get the concept of each chord. Now some of them, depending on where you're at with your guitar playing, some of them are going to be rather obvious and easy to play. Some of them are going to be a little bit more advanced and complex. Nothing too advanced will I cover in this course, but I'm sure there's going to be something for everybody, whether you are a beginner or an advanced player, to enjoy in the series. So now, starting with the chord, the very first chord is going to be at the 8th fret. It is a bar chord, and it is what I call an E position bar chord, meaning just like our E that we've learned previously, it is just moved up into a different position, now using our first finger to bar. If you're still not able to bar correctly, that's okay. I would still advise you to stay with us, as the bar, each chord's going to have its own little variations. So while you may not be able to play 1 or 2, you will still be able to follow along. But I'd always just say, go back and maybe just spend a little bit more time on one of those chords that's not sitting right, or not feeling right, or having a little bit of difficulty with. And no doubt, I'm sure you'll get it. So the first chord is a C major, and we've got our first finger on the 8th fret of the E string. We've got our third finger on the 10th fret of the A string. We've got our 4th finger on the 10th fret of the D string. We've got our 2nd finger on the 9th fret of the G string, and then we're barring the last 2 with our first finger at the 8th fret. Okay, and the C major is made up of a 1, a 3, and a 5. Okay, they are the degrees of the major scale, and as we move through all the chords and the scales and everything else that I'm going to be putting together, these degrees of the scales are going to really come to life, and I think you're going to get a lot out of what I'm going to be covering and making sense of musically. So moving on to our next chord, we're going to be playing a C major 7 in the exact same position. Okay, now we're incorporating a 7th. Okay, and a lot of people will play the major 7 like this, where you skip a string and then you play with your three of your fingers down like that. That's a beautiful way to play. But for us and this journey, we're going to be playing 4 strings consecutively like this, using all our fingers. Now, if you can't bar the last 2 notes down there, that's okay, as it is a little bit tricky. Do your best. But the chord is as follows. So there's just one note that's different in comparison to the first chord, the C major. We've got our first finger on the 8th fret of the E string. We've got our 4th finger on the 10th fret of the A string. We've got our 2nd finger on the 9th fret of the D string. We've got our 3rd finger on the 9th fret of the G string. And we've got our first finger barring the last 2. Okay, and the C major 7 is made up of the 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, now moving on to our next chord, we're going to be looking at a dominant 7. Okay, and the chord is as follows. It is the exact same position as the other two. We've got our first finger barring on the 8th fret, but the top string, the E string, is with our first finger, and then we've got our third finger at the 10th fret of the E string. Then we're open here, essentially, just like our 7th down here. We're open there, and we've got our first finger barring the 8th fret of the D string, and we've got our second finger on the 9th fret of the G string, and then we're barring at the 8th on the B and the E string. Okay, and the 7th is made up of the 1, 3, 5, flattened 7 degrees of the scale, the C major scale. Okay, our next chord, we're moving to a minor. So it is going to be a C minor chord. Okay, and it is played as follows, exactly the same. Our first finger is barring all the notes on the 8th fret. We've got our first finger essentially on that 8th fret of the E string, and our third finger on the 10th fret of the A string, and our fourth finger on the 10th fret of the D string. And the rest of those notes are played with the first finger. I have a habit of putting the second finger right behind the first finger to give it a little bit more strength. Okay, I think this might have been a habit that I picked up when I was a beginner, and it's just stuck with us. Obviously it's not going to work for every chord, but when you do get the opportunity, it gives you a little bit more support. So it's a good little tip there. That is the C minor, and the C minor is made up of a 1, a flattened 3rd, and a 5th. Now moving on to the next chord, we're going to be playing a C minor 7. And the chord is played as follows. Our first finger is barring everything at the 8th fret, and our first finger is on the top string, the E string, at the 8th fret. Our third finger is at the 10th fret of the A string, and then the rest of those are barred. So you've got 4 strings that are being barred quite pronouncedly. So you're going to have to ensure they ring out nicely. As I said before, try the second finger little tip, which can always add a little bit more strength. But if you're unable to do it, just practice it. We can do smaller versions of it, but I do want you to try and really achieve the aim to get all of those notes out. So if it just means a little bit more time you've got to practice this evening, practicing in different positions where the tension is different, then that would be wonderful. And the last chord is only a 4-string chord, and it is the C minor 7 flat 5. And you might be wondering, how does that fit in? I'll get to all that. It is a related chord to the C major, and it is played as follows. So the first finger is at the 8th fret of the E string, second finger is at the 9th fret of the A string, and then the next 2 strings down are played with our first finger, which the 8th fret, okay? And that like so. Okay, and that is the C minor 7 flattened 5, also known as a half diminished. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. You've got 6 new chords to work on. Don't want you moving them anywhere else around the fretboard at this stage. I just want you to do your best. And my apologies, I didn't finish the actual degrees of the flattened 5th, but we've got a 1st, we've got a flattened 3rd, flattened 5, and a flattened 7th. Isn't that cool? Okay, so as I mentioned, stay in that position. If that's all you have to do, practice those 6 chords, call out the degrees of the chord, so you really start to get familiar with how those chords are put together, and I will see you in the next lesson. Okay, thanks guys.